epiphany. This may literally change the trajectory of my entire landscaping. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. So today we're doing a little bit of a science experiment, and then later on in this video I have some super exciting things to talk to you about. First of all, you may notice that my voice sounds a little bit funky. That's because I have a cold, so disregard that. I also have a tub of my soil from outside here in the kitchen, and we're gonna do a little experiment. So I have been looking up plants a lot recently. I majorly have this garden bug. Early springtime always brings it on, and it's like crazy exciting. But I've been looking up plants, and one thing that I notice, obviously I'm looking for the zone, but I'm looking at, you know, if they need shade or sun. And one of the things is that the plants will say that they prefer acidic soil or prefer alkaline. Yeah, alkaline soil, which is like the opposite of acidic. I am so not a science person. I like math, don't mind English, but really hate science. However, obviously it's important, so we're gonna look into it. The pH scale is what we're talking about here. And obviously I want to choose plants that are going to grow well in my area. So I looked up how to tell if your soil is acidic or not. The internet told me this fun little fact. Obviously, the best thing to do would probably be to get a test and see actually if the soil is, you know, what is the pH level, and that can tell you specifically what it is versus just one side or the other of the baseline. But what we're doing today is not that. We're doing this method of home testing with baking soda and vinegar, which we happen to have on hand. So I'm excited to see how this works. Basically, you mix some of the soil with vinegar and you mix some of it with baking soda, and if it's acidic, then the baking soda one is going to fizz. And if it's alkaline, then the vinegar one is going to fizz. And if neither of them fizzes, then in theory it should be pretty neutral. So neutral is actually a pH of 7, according to this. And most plants actually prefer a slightly more acidic, so somewhere between the 6 and 7 range. Obviously, this is not going to tell me a specific number, but at least give an idea of what we're dealing with. Okay, so I'm going to do a half cup of soil for each and a half cup of distilled water. I got distilled specifically from the store because that's what they told me to use. I figure there must be a reason. So, dirt. Dirt, water, water. Delicious and nutritious. Okay, so now the really fun part. We are going to put a half cup of baking soda in one, and if it fizzes, then that means that it is acidic. And then we'll put a half cup of vinegar in the other, and if it fizzes, then that means it is alkaline. And the more that it fizzes, the more strong it is on that scale. So if it fizzes just a little bit, then it is like slightly neutraler. Okay, guys, don't freak out. But I think we have a little bit of a fizz in the acidic bowl. I'm seeing some slight bubble popping, but nothing crazy, just like slight, which honestly, I think I'm pretty excited about because that makes me think that it is closer to the neutral, but slightly acidic. Yes, there's definitely a little bit of fizzing, but very little. And I am not seeing any fizzing over here, although I am seeing a bug that is dying by drowning. So sorry about that. Okay, well, that's great because like we just said moments ago, a lot of plants prefer the more neutral but slightly acidic side of dirt. And that is appearing to be what we have going on here. So I am excited about that, and it should help me as I plan for planting plants in the future. Hey guys, so I have been on a major gardening kick recently. I've been watching so many videos, thinking a lot about, specifically about trees and shrubs, and also really considering like what a garden looks like in the winter. So I watched a video, and it was by the YouTuber is called Garden Moxie, and I'll put a link below to the video that I watched. So she started this video by saying, have you ever wondered why some gardens feel extraordinary while others don't? And I mean, that's definitely something that I've noticed, like especially traveling in Europe, and I've seen beautiful gardens here in America as well, but usually it's at like a castle or a manor or like a botanical garden. It's not so much common in a home garden. And what I'm talking about is like this all-encompassing feeling of being just like surrounded by beautiful, intentional nature. Kind of that secret garden feeling with lush greenery, just a beautiful, all-encompassing oasis. So in this video, she showed several pictures of her garden that she had in Michigan, and I thought it was just absolutely lovely. She had so many different trees and shrubs and vertical interest. She had, around all of her garden beds, or around a lot of them, she had boxwood hedges, and I've always been really crazy about boxwood, although I've never used it, and honestly, it's not used that much around here, although I know there are varieties that are hardy down to zone 4, that's where I am, or B, I guess, so closer to 5. And sometimes you do see it, like a little shrub here or there, or sometimes around businesses there might be more of a hedge, I guess. But it's just not as common as other places. But what I really noticed about her pictures were that she had pictures of her garden in the winter. And honestly, the garden was just so lovely in the winter because it had this different interest with all of the trees and shrubs and everything. But I thought it was cool that the garden doesn't like disappear in the winter because it's covered in snow. It's still a beautiful space, even just to look out of your window and see. Because honestly, around here, I live in northern New York, zone 4 like I said, and winter genuinely lasts like half of the year. So the thought of gardens looking beautiful in the winter was something I'd never really thought of. Like in my mind, and I feel like most people around here, the thought is like there's gardening season and then there's winter. You know, they're not intertwined at all. But I thought that the way that she had all of the evergreens in her garden and just the different heights of things really gave a lot of beautiful winter interest. So I felt like looking at her garden, which is in Michigan, it felt to me like this beautiful garden oasis. Similar, I mean on a smaller scale obviously, but to, you know, castle gardens that I've visited in different places in Europe, or similar to the home gardens that I will see a lot on like English gardening shows that I've watched because they're fun, like Monty Don. And I've always felt like one of the reasons that I like those gardens so much is because they were such small defined spaces. Like I watched the show Big Dreams, Small Spaces with Monty Don, which is a great show if you like that kind of thing. I just really am a fan of England, honestly. So in a lot of those situations, they just have this small backyard rectangle and then they turn it into a beautiful garden. And that seems so much different than what I'm used to seeing in America, at least in rural America, which I am. Usually people have, you know, a big yard and then there would be some garden beds or borders in that yard, and they're beautiful and I love them, that's great. But this was really different for me to see, and especially to see that in a garden in America, and I was like, well, wait a second, why couldn't I do something like that? I'm getting ahead of myself. So in the video, she went on to say what makes these gardens different or feel different, and that is when I started to get thinking. So she talked a lot about enclosure, so having your garden be enclosed, private, hugging you in on all sides. She talked about the importance of having paths, hardscaping, sight lines, so your path leads to something beautiful. Having an arrival experience, so like maybe you're going through a door or an opening, or you turn a corner and then like straight ahead is this something beautiful, a beautiful vista, or like one specific thing to draw your eye. And also like just the importance of the vertical interest, like I said, having things at different heights, so it's not just, you know, looking down at a garden bed. And I know for myself that's something I really, my eye likes that when I see it. So there was a lot more in that video. I definitely would recommend watching it if you're into gardening or garden design. But with all of that info overload and also just literally watching so many videos, reading so many different blog posts and stuff, when I get on a kick, I get on a kick and it's just like all my brain thinks about. So obviously, seeing all of this information makes me think, how can I apply it to my own garden and my own landscaping? But specifically, I'm thinking of my back area. So I said from the very start that I want to have a beautiful forest garden behind my house, the lovely creek that I have, but I had a hard time actually envisioning specifically what I want. It's like I know how I want it to feel, but I don't really know how or where to start. And it's a big project. So it's kind of overwhelming, and it wasn't the next thing on my to-do list, so I've been kind of just letting it sit there out in the future, knowing I would figure it out someday. However, I have had an epiphany. This may literally change the trajectory of my entire landscaping. So the idea scared me at first, but the more that I think about it, the more I feel comfortable and confident about it. So I need you guys to be brave with me and have an open mind. I think that I need a barrier, either a hedge or a fence that goes straight between my shed and my house. I'll show you what I mean. So something directly between the two, and I'm honestly thinking probably more fence than a hedge just because of where my septic is, but I've already been thinking of ways to work around that. So this is why. My property is really fantastic for what I have in mind for my dream garden because it's already closed in on all sides with either the forest or the creek or my house. And I'll show you more of that later. But I may end up planting more trees to make it feel even more enclosed, but for the most part, it's already enclosed with nature. So by adding the fence, it would close off the one side that is open and allow more privacy, more coziness, and give it really specific barriers. So until this idea, I didn't know where really to make the garden start, whereas this gives me a much better idea of what I want and how to actually go about it. It gives way more opportunity for vertical interest because you could have, a vine growing up the fence plus a tree in front of it, and then you could still have flowers on the ground. That's like 3 different layers of interest and just so much beauty in one view. So it's really given me a lot more ideas of how I want to do it, knowing the specific location and barriers. I really want to focus on winter interests, like I said, to put some more evergreens in because back there right now there's not a lot at all. I don't think there's any. I'm really excited. I want to try out boxwood, and you can make it in different shapes. Honestly, I'm thinking about having more of a formal garden up at the top. It's kind of fun because I can have 2 different levels, like the upper level and then the lower in the forest level. So I could do maybe more of a formal garden up at the top, and then as you go down to the lower level, have more of a jungly, lush area with different paths in it. So it could be like 2 different vibes all in the same garden. And I think by using the correct plants, even though it's a more shady area, you can use hostas or ferns, things that are meant to be in the forest and still have a really lush vibe, even though you're in a forest in northern New York. So I've also been thinking about what features I want to focus on in the garden. Obviously, the creek is a big focal point, as well as the really cool stone walls that I have in the back. So that can be a focal point, but it's also a barrier at the end. And I'll show you more. I'm going to show some drone footage so you have a better idea of what everything looks like. Like I've said in the past, I want to have a sauna down by the creek. It would also be fun to have maybe another seating area, maybe a swinging bench or a swing of some sort. Different spots to just stop and enjoy the view from a slightly different angle, so it's a different view. She talked a lot about having different garden rooms, so you can't see everything when you walk into the garden, and that's definitely something that I want. So it keeps you interested, as you go around these paths, then it's a different view of something you haven't seen before. It makes it just a really cool place to explore and enjoy. Now, keep in mind, I am aware that this is a huge, huge project, like a tens of years project. In order for it to turn into this thing that I have in my mind, even just for trees and shrubs to grow and mature, there's a lot of different garden areas to plant, and I still don't know what I'm doing. Don't get me wrong about that. But I'm so aware that this is a massive, over many, many years project, and I will have to learn as I go because I don't know anything, as always. But I'm thankful that I have a much clearer vision than I did before, because really I think that's the hardest part. If you get the vision, then you can just slowly figure it out. But if you're going into a huge project and you don't have a vision, then you just start doing things that you regret later. So I'm really thrilled about this epiphany, if you couldn't tell. Okay, so this week I went through and took a bunch of pictures and videos because I wanted to have a really clear before picture. I know it's still not the very earliest. It was worse, way worse. But somewhat of a before picture so that I can look back and see how far we've come. So I want to share that with you. I also put the drone up in the air so that we could see the view looking straight down, and then hopefully use that to better plan out the overall shape of the garden and just kind of see what we're working with. I thought it would be a good idea to do before the leaves all came on the trees, so I will show you that. So my goal is to maybe get an idea of where I want my paths to be and kind of start with that. I really want to try to do the hardscaping first, then the trees and shrubs, and then way down the road we'll work on flowers. Also, I'm planning on having it basically completely perennials. Honestly, a lot of repetition in the plants. For me, it's not so much about the flowers, but about the lushness and the greenery with pops of color here and there. You know, I love flowers as well. But I wanted to share with you some exciting news about the patio, also coming this year. I spoke with Mark, who did a bunch of excavating for me last year. You may remember the videos. But he is willing to come back this year to help with the patio, and I am beyond excited. So he is going to be making the side walls, and then I will work on the top of the patio after he is finished. But he also might work on leveling out the back a little bit and get us moving on that process, which I know will be a project in and of itself. I think my dad is going to help with taking down some more of the trees, and eventually I hope to have somewhat of a decent growing area back there. Little by little, we're getting there. So honestly, I'm not sure how far I'm going to get on this project this year. The top priority for this year is the patio, although it might take less time than expected because Mark said he might even be able to get here and do it in May, which is so fun. He said it would take 3 to 4 days to do the base work. So I guess my goal is to have the patio done and a solid garden plan so that I can maybe get some discounted trees or shrubs by the end of the growing season and get them growing, hopefully, over the winter. We shall see, but I am crazy excited. It literally feels so good to have somewhat of a plan. Okay, so here in this picture, you can see the outline of where I'm hoping to have the garden as well as where the patio is going to be. It looks crazy big in this picture, and that's a little bit overwhelming, but I think it's doable. When you're down in it, it doesn't actually look nearly this big. And so much of it is going to be pathways. It is going to be the coolest garden ever. So friends, let me know what you think about this crazy plan. I was watching a video about garden design, and Paul Bengay, who is an Australian garden designer, said that his biggest advice would be to be bold and overscale. And that is the difference between a novice and professional. Do everything a bit bigger than you think you should. So we'll see how it all goes. It is a bit of a wild idea, but I really think it has the potential to be amazing after many, many years of hard work. I'm so excited to see what this all brings. And I'm so thankful to have some clarity on what I'm looking for and what I'm working towards. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you're interested to see what is going to become of this back area. We have so much work to do. So much work to do. So don't think that everything is over because the house is done. This thing back here, I was talking to my sister and I was telling her about it. She said, that's almost as big of a project as the house. And I said, I'm pretty sure it's way bigger. I mean, this is going to take like decades to get it to grow up and be the lush, beautiful thing that I'm looking for. Big picture. So it's definitely a big project. It's going to take a lot of work, but I'm excited to see how it all comes together. And I hope you are too. So subscribe if you haven't already. Tap the bell to stay notified when new videos are coming out. Like this video if you liked it. Check out Garden Moxie if you're looking for design inspiration. And stay tuned to see what's happening here at the house. I'll see you guys next time on A Drill and a Dream.